Hello again. This is part 3 of a, I hope not too boring, long-winded rant. Just kind of summarizing my experiences and observations of this cross Florida individual time trial. I went into the race, I looked at the overall distance, and based on long rides and races and endurance stuff I've done before, I went into it thinking that I could do it in 24 hours, provided that I made it to the ferry in time. I'm not so sure now, even if I had made it to the ferry, that I could do that. I'm not saying it's not doable, but man, it's really, really tough because the second half of the course, especially I would say the last half, by the time you reach I don't even know the name of the trail. It's past the Earn and Burn section. For those of you that are familiar with the Santos trail system, I think that's Ross Prairie, I'm not sure, but it's hardly ridden. It looks like it's relatively new, and it is a long section that goes on for miles and miles and miles and miles. And the thing is, 5 to 7 miles an hour top speed, because the ground is soft and the trail is tight, and it took a long time to get through there. And then at the very end, I would say in the last 20 miles, the route has you going through a lot of areas, even in some residential areas where the roads are not paved. It's just sand, like trying to ride on the beach. And I had to get off and walk with my bike repeatedly just to be able to get through that stuff. I couldn't ride it. So that took a lot of time. It took a lot longer than the first half did, even though the distance of the second half is roughly equal to that of the first. So that being said, I don't know if I could have done it in 24 hours. It's remotely possible, but I think it's highly unlikely that would be the case. When I looked at the other finishers that were ahead of me, none of them did. It appears that they took like 34, 35 hours, I think, if I'm understanding it correctly. It was one of the quickest times. So yeah, it was tough. My bike worked fantastic, although the miles and miles of forest road that I did in the rain with sand and water splashing all over everything, I don't think my chain and sprockets and the little mechanical bits of my bike were too happy with that. But it survived it, and it got me through. I'm going to have to really do a good check over when I get back home in a couple of days, and it might be time for a new chain and a couple of minor parts now for it, because I wouldn't say that they took a beating, but man, the number of miles that I rode through sandy, wet conditions with that thing, it definitely didn't sound too good. But other than that, the bike performed, I gotta say, pretty flawlessly. I didn't have any problems with it. No flats, yay! Side note on that though, I've been running inner tubes in my tires for the longest while, and I just put a different set of tires on specifically to do this event, and went to tubeless. Thanks Dale, by the way, for the Schwalbe tires. They worked great. But I couldn't get the rear one to seal up perfectly. And after just a few miles in the race, I noticed I think it was leaking at the rim somewhere, ever so slowly. I mean, I could ride on it, but after a while I had to stop and pump it up several times. And then finally, when I got into Gemini Springs State Park near DeBerry, I figured, man, this is just going to cost me time, because I'm going to have to stop and inflate it. So I stopped and I put a tube in. Didn't have to do it with the front, just the rear one, but I never had any problems after that. And never had any flats. Good thing, because somewhere between Greenway Bikes and the Landbridge Trailhead, I lost my pump. I lost my pump, I lost my taillight, and I lost my folding Allen wrench set. So if I had had a mechanical problem with my bike or a flat tire, I would have been screwed. Not only would I have been screwed, it would have been really, really bad, because that Ross Prairie Trail section, or whatever that's called, I went through there at night, and it was, I think I was going through there anywhere between 7 and 9 p.m., which is not super late. But I'll tell you what, that trail is not well defined. It's hard to see. I was relying on the GPS and these little orange flag markers that the trail builder had stuck in the ground along the way. If it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would go. You can't actually see a trail. And then I heard like large wild animals running around in the woods. I don't know if they're wild boars or deer or Sasquatch out there, but that place was like the spooky enchanted forest, man. It's like, man, what an experience. And then, you know, I'm pushing pretty hard. I mean, I'm not going all out, but I'm pushing pretty hard through there, and I'm looking at my speed, and it's like 5 miles per hour. And that's about all I could sustain in there. That place was crazy, and it took, I thought I was never going to get out of that enchanted forest, man. That place took forever to get through. And I'm thinking, all right, at some point I got to come out on a road, because sometimes I could hear way, way, way off in the distance, I could hear like cars driving at high speed, like I was near a highway, which I could have been. But when I got out of the enchanted forest, instead of coming out on like a main road or something, I came out into some grass field farmland somewhere. And every time I look at the GPS screen, it showed me like I have 4 or 5 miles to do on this, and then it connects with another one. So it went from slow riding in the forest to equally as slow and difficult riding in grass field farmlands. So that was quite the experience there.